like a testament to his effort or anything like that. And so that's my dad's past. He was also a womanizer. I mean, my dad's story of how he met my mother was he had a book full of numbers and women, and he would just scroll through them. One day he said, "I'm just tired of being a womanizer." I mean, he said this in Spanish though. So he basically said, "I'm tired of having sex with endless amounts of women. I kind of want to settle down." And he told, this is his story of how he decided to marry my mother. He scrolled down all the numbers that he had and basically just randomly picked one. And then from there, he picked my mother incidentally and decided to marry her. That was his explanation of how he decided to marry my mother. She has a completely different story, and I'm not going to get into it. I mean, I don't even know it that well. But my mom has kind of managed to keep me in this delusional mindset as a child that my dad was kind of a reliable person, and my dad kind of inversely suggested my mother was a prudent, like irrational, rash woman. And they all have their own stories of how they met and what happened and what have you. And it's crazy because I have no idea whose is right and what have you, and it's just crazy. Like I don't know what to make of it. But I was raised in this very patriarchal Mexican traditional family, and you know what I'm saying. Like the first fight I ever got into was at the age of 12. Like my dad drove me to a fight to fight somebody. Like me and my brother, he drove me and my brother to go fight somebody, and he was like the lookout at the age of 12. And it was cool. Like, I mean, a lot of people would think that that's a really cool thing, and that, like, I don't know, like a lot of people would probably think it's hard or awesome, or I don't know. But I was very young when I got like into my first fight, you know. And like my dad drove me there, and he was the lookout and what have you. And I was scared, I was terrified, but I fought and I was like 12, And my parents, I have to kind of clarify this because my parents made it out of this relative poverty. Like I used to live in a 3-bedroom apartment with my brother at the age of till like 6, and then my parents managed to make it through a business, like through my dad of all things. So like my dad kind of has these very redeeming qualities. He's a very gregarious businessman, but has hard work ethic, and he's pretty principled and what have you. And he's an admirable human being for whatever it's worth, under this notion that he praises like capitalistic principles, individualism, and what have you. And he kind of raised me, and I wasn't always about that. You know what I'm saying? And he kind of, so he basically drove me to my first fight, and it was against a best friend of mine who betrayed me and threatened to burn my father's store down and what have you, and his little friends and what have you. And it was crazy because that was a pretty pivotal moment in my life where a friend that I grew up with in this poor neighborhood, as we started gaining social status and social mobility, started feeling intimidated by us, or like felt like we're distancing ourselves from him. And we weren't, you know what I'm saying? He had like this completely different understanding of who we were as friends or what have you, or people, you know what I'm saying, as our relationship as friends. That, I mean, the guy was practically family to me for 6 or 7 years, you know what I'm saying? But he kind of turned his back on us, and my dad saw it as pretty bad, like the way he was trying to threaten us and what have you. So he was like, okay, well, you guys have to go handle your business right now, and you guys can't look weak, you guys can't look you guys can't look emasculated, you guys can't look like, I mean, I hate to say the word, but you guys can't look like pussies, right? You guys can't look like that. in front of this guy, and you guys have to set this standard to him or to other people that you guys aren't going to be picked on within this city or this town or with anybody else for that matter. So at the age of 12, he drove us to our first fight. I got my kicks in, my brother got his kicks in. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that was that. And then, like, at the age of 15, my dad gave me my first condom. You know what I'm saying? He gave me my first condom, and he kind of, like, gave it to me with this winking manner and this disposition, like, you guys are now a man, you know, be wise about it. It was, I don't know, like I said, he's a certain guy that you have to just see, and you would understand everything of how I was raised. He's like the Dos Equis guy, you know. My dad has all of these crazy stories that are just so unbelievable, but they're true. And he has like this patriarchal demeanor. It's just unbelievable how my dad is. He's a character, you know what I'm saying? But that's basically how I was raised, with my dad in mind. And I was kind of like turning to the, I guess, darker side of the city, or like in Santa Fe, at a young age. Like I was a young Mexican kid going to a private high school because my dad and my parents managed to accumulate the amount of money to put me there in a private high school and a private middle school too. And there was, in a private middle school and a private high school in Santa Fe, there really wasn't that much diversity. You know what I'm saying? I'm a pretty light, I have light skin, you know what I'm saying? I'm pretty white, I'm a white Mexican. But there wasn't many other Mexicans, and there wasn't many other Hispanics in, you know, the capital of New Mexico, in a private high school of that. So it was tough because like I didn't feel like I belonged. I had friends before when I went to middle school, like Victor, who was my best friend that I fought, and I made friends with other people that were kind of like him, that were darker than me, you know what I'm saying, that were Mexican, and that was tough because there was little of that, you know, in Santa Fe. And it was a reality check, but it was kind of something my parents kind of like prepped me for. And I'm being very quick and trying to, you know, go through this, you know, just so you have like a rough understanding of what I'm gonna say, or have like a background of where I came from. And I'm really not doing any justice to like my life story or anything, but I'm gonna try to keep it minimal. It's like a very abridged version of my life. So I came from that background. There was not many Hispanic people. Those who were Hispanic or darker or like Mexican or ghetto, really, that criteria. If you were Mexican, darker, or ghetto, and you went to like St. Mike's in Santa Fe, New Mexico, you were it was highly likely you were going to be a dropout. You were going to be a dropout, or you were going to get kicked out. You were going to willfully choose to leave, or you were going to be kicked out within like before freshman year, you know. And that happened to two of my closest friends who were Hispanic and dark, and one of the very few that were in my class that I had made friends with that were, you know, distinctively minorities. And they were kind of like ghetto too, you know. So so one got kicked out, the other one went to Santa Fe High. And then I kind of like started feeling a bit inferior. I didn't like the thought of being treated like a typical ghetto Mexican kid, you know what I'm saying? And I kind of understood the climate at that time of how they treated minorities in Santa Fe. And I was kind of just being this pragmatic guy that was like, I'm not going to be like this estranged outcast. I'm going to try to make my way through the politics of high school and gain a bit of popularity. I knew that at 7th grade, like, I had to do this because I would be irrelevant, and I would, you know, I'd feel like, you know, like a loser. I didn't like the thought of not being popular or recognized within high school. And I kind of had this like very mild, innocuous form of vindication against my peers, who most of them were white. And I didn't want to be considered lesser than them at that young age.